I'm Paige Lindsay Smith, and I...
Paige, hold on one second. I'm sorry to do that. I just want Okay.
Okay. You want me to start over?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm Paige Lindsay Smith, and I was here from 73, graduating in 1976.
And approximately what percentage of your class were women?
I don't know about percentage, but I was told there were 90 women that year on campus, and that there had been 30 the year before. And a friend of mine and we did the math yesterday, and that sounds about right.
You said 90 women?
90 women total on campus my first year.
And what did it feel like to go from having 30 women to 90 women?
Well, we hadn't been here when there were the 30 women.
Okay. So when you were considering grad schools, why did you pick YDS?
Well, it's kind of funny. I had a boyfriend in college whose home was New Haven. So we were up here quite a bit. I was in college in Baltimore, so we could drive it easily. And I had gotten to know New Haven and hanging around Yale, and I really liked the feel of the city. And I worked on campus with a young woman whose father was, I've forgotten who it was, he was a prominent New Testament scholar at Duke. And I said, Sarah, ask your dad where I should go to Div school. And she came back and said, Yale.
What, did you find anything unexpected about YDS when you arrived?
Men. I had gone to a girls' boarding school. I had gone...
Start that with a sentence.
I'm sorry. What I found most unexpected about getting to YDS, men. I had gone to a girls' boarding school. I had gone to a women's college. And I was suddenly in an environment where there were more men than women. And I was in classes with men. And they were very smart.
So do you think that your identity as a woman made a difference in your experience at YDS?
Very much so. And like I said, coming from a women's college, it was a little bit of a social shock. There were still only 90 women on campus, and that's including probably grad students and people who lived in town who were coming back to do a degree. At that point, the women had moved out of Porter House and were living on the top floors of the dormitory housing units, which are not dorms anymore. So the women were on the second floor and the men were on the lower. So we were living in mixed houses, and there was a very strong sense of feminist identity here. We had, my first year I took a course called Women in Ministry. We had the Women's Center. It was a very strong identity thing going on.
Were you able to find women role models in faculty and staff?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Joan Forsberg, that I know people have mentioned. Margaret Farley was teaching. And I think in many cases among my fellow students, I was very, very impressed with my fellow students. They were my roommate had come from Smith, and she was so smart. She's since become a Bartian scholar and is at Virginia Seminary. And I'm still quite a bit in awe of Kate. So I think some of my role models were my peers.
Paige, could you and Karen just adjust your, it's catching the light in a weird way.
You want me to take?
No,
Okay.
that might have done it.
Okay.
Go ahead and
Okay.
lean into,
Okay.
yeah, okay, good.
In what ways has your time at YDS shaped or affected your ministry and commitment to women's empowerment?
Absolutely. My first semester here, my work assignment, I was working at an abortion clinic. And it was a fax clinic at Yale New Haven. And this was in 73. The law had just changed. And I was offered this, and it had just never occurred to me that this was something, of course I cared about it, but it wasn't something I saw myself actually doing. I was intrigued. I was fascinated. I loved the doctors, the nurses I worked with. The whole time I was here, my work study was with facts or with Planned Parenthood. And in fact, when I came back one year after my husband and I went abroad to live and came back, I volunteered at Planned Parenthood. They had just started their abortion clinic. And I came back as a volunteer to help them get started because I had had experience with that. And later in my life, I went back to working in women's reproductive health, and I married a doctor who was an abortion provider. And our clinic was bombed in Birmingham. That was our clinic. And so I ended up committing just a lot of my passion and investing myself a lot in women's reproductive rights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. You didn't know that about
I
me,
didn't know
did
that
Jeff?
about you,
Okay.
no.
That's wonderful. So going back to YDS,
Mhm.
do you have any sort of vivid memories about adjusting to the new environment?
Well, you know, it's funny. I came here with a boyfriend. We had been an item all through college and our first year here. And so it was, I think, a little bit of some of our friends came from slightly more conservative backgrounds. So Rob and I were living together. And that was a little shocking to some of our friends because it was not discreet. And people didn't tend to come here as a couple. I did know one couple, the Eddies, who were married when they got here. But there weren't many other couples who came as a couple. So, you know, in a way it was a little easier coming in. I didn't come cold not knowing people. And that did make it somewhat easier. But he was a very outgoing man. He still is. And if you met him, you were his best friend in 10 minutes. So.
Can you think of an incident or an experience that sort of encapsulates your experience at YDS?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. One was first year, I was taking the Women in Ministry course, and we had that in the Women's Center. And it was Susan B. Anthony's birthday. And we decided to hijack coffee hour. I don't know if they still have coffee hour, but this was right after chapel in the common room, and coffee and things were served, and there'd be someone playing the piano, usually our friend Habib Batter, who had been a nightclub piano player in Beirut. And we just hijacked coffee hour and did readings from Susan B. Anthony. And a lot of the faculty was not right pleased with that, and I don't quite know why. So there was that, and I think the dining hall mainly. Just our social life really circled around meals and everyone being together in the dining hall and being able to have a meal with your professors and developing those friendships with your professors. So that's what I remember.
Good. Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I just think these were probably the most formative years of my life. And who I became was because of YDS. And I married here, and he was an academic gypsy, so we kind of roamed around the world for a long time. And that wouldn't have happened. I think I would have had a very boring life if I hadn't gone to YDS. So.
Wonderful. So one last question.
Yes.
Which is related. I'm curious if you could say a little bit about why you decided to join the alumni board.
Well, I was invited. Gail and I became very good friends working on a reunion, a great reunion we had one year for our class, our group cluster. And we had a panel, and they had to move it to one of the conference rooms on religion in the Village Square, something like that. Chris Glosser organized it. And I talked about women's reproductive rights and that kind of thing. And Gail and I just became very close friends. And at one point, after my husband, the physician, passed away, I said, "What can I do for YDS? I'm all yours." And she said, "We'll be on the alumni board." So that was that.